So the topic for today is a couple of different layout techniques and then something known as media queries. And we will begin by learning about CSS property called position. There are a couple of different values for it. And for this, I'm going to create again new HTML page, which its own structure to demonstrate a couple of different effects. What you can do with the position thing. We saw already one example when we reviewed the homeworks. There was this position fixed thing. And then position absolute, I think there was also demonstrated. But let's see what they actually mean and how do they operate. I'm going to put the CSS styling here now internal to this HTML. Easy viewing. And okay, this will be a demonstration of different position values. And I'm going to create here 3 divs, red, green, and blue divs, just to illustrate how they look. And I'm going to put here the colors and the div sizes with classes with name red, green, and blue. So this will be class red. And then it's closing. Then I will copy this and create now 2 more divs with the class names green and blue. Like so. So now we have 3 divs here. Class red, green, and blue. We don't have any CSS styling yet, but next part is to style these. I'm going to put the background color for all these with this based on the class name, and then I'm going to size these so that they are all they have some height, because now they don't have any child elements, so their size will be 0. They would not be visible. So I will put some size, and to do the size for all of these, I'm going to add a CSS class called box for all of these. So this box will be a common class for all of these, so I can style them through that. So CSS selector dot box for the class box. And here I will now set that, okay, height will be, let's say, 100 px. And let's put also some width setting, for example, 100 px. So they will be 3 rectangles with 100 px height and width. Okay, then the background colors for the red. So background color red, then green, background color green, and blue, and background color blue. This tab 9 is working here again, suggesting that do you want to have the background color blue, and it has 20% confidence. So yes, I want to do that. I have said it previously, but I say it again that this is pretty amazing add-on. Helps you quite a lot with this kind of especially repetitive code. Okay, let's see how this looks like now. here. Okay, so 3 boxes here. 100 pixels, 100 pixels, width and height, and red, green, and blue. Okay, so now the CSS property what we are going to be playing around with is called position. I recommend you open this W3 Schools position property documentation. And this property has 5 different values. And the default value, if you do not define anything for an element, the default value, it will be used, it's called static. And here when you read this information that, okay, they are by default position static, and then static position elements are not affected by something called top, bottom, left, and right properties. And they were already mentioned here. So we have this position property, and then it is very closely combined with properties called top, bottom, left, and right. So, and as it says here, these top, bottom, left, and right properties will not have any effect unless you have set the position property first. And they also work differently depending on the position value. But in any case, the important thing here to realize is that these 4 properties and then the position property, they are closely coupled so that they have they work together to achieve some interesting things. Okay, so the static is the default one, so we are not going to do anything with it now. But let's start to see what is this relative thing then. I will now put here a new class called target, and I will set the position to be relative for this one. And this target I will set for this green box. So like this. Now, when we refresh this view with these settings here, there is no change in behavior. And the reason is that this code does not change the behavior in any visible way yet, because we have not yet set any of the top, bottom, left, or right properties, which go always together with these position values. Let's see how they work. I will use the debugger tool here to play around. It's here, this green one. It has this target setting. Here we can see you have the position relative. When I click here, I can write some new CSS properties for this one. So let's see if I set the left property, for example. And then if I set left property for 100 px, you see what happens. This green box is now moved or rendered 100 pixels from its left side compared to its original position. So relative to its original position. So this is what the relative position allows you to do. It allows you to change the location of the element from its default static position relative to that position with these left, top, right, and bottom values. So now we have modified with the left. We can also put some value for the top, for example. So top 100 px, would it take there? If we set some value for the bottom, let's see what happens. Now it goes basically upwards. So it is 100 pixels positive from its bottom value. And here a good thing to notice is that you can also have these negative pixels. So if I put minus 100 pixels, it goes downwards. And then let's see how the right one behaves. So right 100 px. It doesn't make any sense now, but before we deactivate this left. So left and right properties, they cannot be set at the same time, and then top and bottom, they cannot be set at the same time for any meaningful thing. So as you can see, if I have all these in effect, the top and bottom, they will cancel out so that the bottom one is in effect. Or actually, no, it seems that the top one is overriding the bottom, yeah. And here the left is overriding the right. So typically in CSS, how this thing behaves is that the last one overrides. But here it seems that when you have these left, top, bottom, right, all have activated. The first one from the starting from the top, that's the one which decides the behavior. But in any case, you should not use all of these four together, but you should either use left or right, top or bottom to achieve what you want. If I take all of these away, then it goes back to the normal position. So this is what relative is. Let's write here, for example, left 100 px. And there it is then. And the important thing here is to notice that when I set the position to be relative, the location of the blue and red is not affected in any way. So both of these red and blue, they operate as in the same way as they would even with the position value unset for the green one. Okay, let's see what's then the absolute thing. I'm going to set the absolute one for this the green one. So let's modify it a little bit. I'm going to set the absolute. And now when I refresh, you can see that something else happened. When I set the position absolute, the blue one also moved to another location. The green one is now here. So if I modify the position value for this green one, we can see that the default rendering location would be here with the left 8px. If I go with the left 0px, you can see that, yeah, with this absolute, the 0 coordinate is in fact at the right, at the left edge of the screen window, of the browser window. Whereas when we had the relative and then the 0 coordinate, it was here at the same position. We can see it here if I set the position relative for this red one, and then if I set left 0px, it remains here in the same with this small margin here on the left side. That is the default margin in the HTML. In the body, you can see it here. It's this this orange orange color is showing the margin, and here it's visible that there is the 8-pixel margin. And that is in effect for this relative positioned red box. But as you can see, for this green box, which is positioned in absolute, then the margin is not in effect anymore of the body. And the main thing is that what happens is that when this green element is with now this position absolute, the red and blue, they behave as if this green one does not exist at all. So the layout positioning logic for this red and green one is the same as if we would not have this this green one here at all. So basically, when you set the position absolute, the element what has the position absolute, it is being removed from the normal layout calculations of the of the page in the browser. So it is absolutely positioned. Then if we see what the documentation says about the absolute, and here is one important thing. So an element with position absolute is positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. And then, however, if absolutely positioned element has no positioned ancestors, it uses the document body. So this ancestor now here becomes an important term, relative to its nearest positioned ancestor. Now, when we have this target element here, it is now this green box here. It is positioned absolute. So this element does not have any ancestor element which would be positioned. A positioned ancestor element would mean that this element, this one here, would be a child or descendant element of an element which would have the position value set. Now there is no such case. So this rule is in effect. If it has no position ancestors, it uses the document body, and that is what is happening now. So now when we set the left, right, top, or bottom value for this one, those are now calculated based on the document body. Let's see what happens if we add here a new div class, let's say relative test. Then if we put this one, the green box inside this relative test, and for this relative test, let's set a position value. So now that this one becomes a positioned ancestor for this green box target element. I'm going to set here position relative. And this is very commonly done like this, that if you want to do some absolute positioning for an element, you select a suitable ancestor element and set position relative to it, because on its own, this doesn't do anything anything for an element, for this element, but it only serves now basically as a coordinate reference point for this green box target. So now green box target is a child element of this one. So it means that this relative test is now an ancestor element from green box target viewpoint. So therefore, this is now in effect because the ancestor element is positioned, since a relative test has now this position relative. Oh. Let's see. So now the relative test is located here, and so it's basically here in the middle before red and the blue one. Let's do it so that this relative test shall have also some height. Let's say 200 px. It's for better demonstration. So now we have the red box, we have the relative test, and then we have the blue box. So these are now all laid out here with the normal layout logic. So they are on top of each other because they have this display block. Now this relative test, this has now position value set to the relative. And then inside it, it has this green box, which has position absolute. So now what happens is that this green box target element, it uses this relative test element as its coordinate reference. And it's visible if I, for example, set here, now we have this left 100. If I take it away, I set bottom 0. You can see that now the green box target goes to the bottom of the relative test element. If I change the size of relative test element, let's say 400, the green box target with its bottom 0 position absolute is still at the very bottom of this relative test element. If I take this away, it is there. In the same way, if I set for the green box target, if I set the right value, that the right is, let's say, 0 px. So now it is aligned here on the right edge of this relative test ancestor element. Now if this relative test, if we set its width to be, let's say, 400 pixels, you can see how the green box target here with its value right 0 moves, because it is still at the right 0 pixel positioned location, but that location has now changed because the relative test size changed. So when we modify this one, the size, the green box target keeps its position because the coordinate system of the green box target is now this relative test element. So this is the special relationship with the position absolute and then a positioned ancestor element, what this sentence here tries to convey. So this element with position absolute is positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. So now the positioned ancestor is now this relative test here, and our absolute position element is this green box target. And understanding this position thing is quite important thing. It is useful in many, many situations. Especially if you need to have some very detailed positions of some elements. Okay. There are some other values as well. So there was the 5 different possible values: the static, relative, and fixed, absolute, and sticky. we have seen how this relative and absolute work. Next one is the fixed. Let's say what does it say? An element with position fixed is positioned relative to the viewport, which means that it always stays in the same place even if the page is scrolled. Okay, let's see how that one works. If we take the green box target and set that one to be with the fixed, what happens? Okay, now I have too small window. If I make the window really, really small. So you can see that when I have the window really small so that I can scroll the fixed element, it keeps its position relative to the viewport. So you can see that the green one is fixed here, basically to the viewport. If we set here top 0, for example, now you can see that we have an element which keeps here, keeps its place on top of the screen. If we put bottom 0, now it is always located here at the bottom of the viewport. And that is true no matter what we do with the viewport size. So it always keeps there. So one example where this position fixed is, for example, used is when you go these days to any website. Let's say, what would be a good site? Okay, let's see, CNN. Probably they have this kind of cookie warning thing. Is it visible here? No, why? Usually they always have some cookie warning. Or if I go to, what would be a good one? Let's say GitHub. I already accepted. Let's take an incognito view. Okay, so now you see here, this is now we use this optional third-party cookie. So this cookie dialog. So this is a good example of how this position fixed can be, for example, used. So you have some kind of dialog which is visible all the time, no matter where you are scrolling. Or what is your browser screen. And if we take a look here with the inspect element, this is most likely done with a position fixed, and there it is. So if I take this position fixed here away, now their cookie warning, I don't know where it jumps, maybe here somewhere on the bottom. Yeah. So the normal location of this cookie warning would be here at the bottom of the page. But when you have the position fixed, it will be always here at the bottom of the viewport. So this is one example of where this position fixed can be used. Another very common use case for this position fixed is that if you have some kind of permanent, for example, top menu or side menu, that would be also a good one. For example, in the home exercise what we had, let's see, where is it? So here was the UI design for the home exercise. So in this kind of design, it might be desired that if this main area here, where you have this user churn details, customer retention, if that is very long and to see the whole page, it requires scrolling. It might be so that it is desirable for this left menu, for example, to always be visible, so that when you scroll down, the left menu would be visible here always. So that could also be achieved with the position fixed, so that the left menu would be located always here, no matter where you are scrolling. Are you here on the top of the page or bottom of the page? And no matter how long, then this menu would be available. And it's quite convenient, because if you have a long page, for example, that if this would have more and more and more sections here on the bottom, and you would need to scroll down multiple pages, and then if you want to navigate somewhere, it is quite tedious if you have to scroll all the way up to access the side menu. So that's one of the use cases for this position fixed thing. Then we have the position sticky. And then this is especially good for this kind of menus, which because this one, as it says, that it toggles between the relative and fixed position, depending on the scroll position. So with this position sticky, you can achieve this kind of effect. Like here, this green box is this sticky. And when you start to scroll down, it sticks with your viewport and then comes with you. But then when you are here on the top area, then it is laid out here like it's part of the page. And then when you reach this threshold, now it starts to stick. So this is this is also quite useful in when you want to create, for example, menus which comes with you. And here now, when scrolling this view, we can see that the W3 Schools, this menu has been done with this sticky, because like you see here, we have this w3schools.com logo here, and then the login button, and then the menu is here. So at this moment, it is positioned with the relative. And then when I scroll down, now it becomes this fixed. So this is one of the use cases for the sticky. And we can see it here that it should be done with the sticky. It's also possible to do it with JavaScript, having some calculations, but let's see what they have done here. Yeah, so here you can see that this is the positioned relative here for this element. When I scroll down, then it becomes fixed. But I think this has been done with JavaScript, because it flashes like that. You can see that this element flashes here. So that's an indication that they have been modified by JavaScript. So I think that the position sticky is not actually used for this menu, but it is done with JavaScript by monitoring the scroll position of the window. Okay, let's see how the sticky works. So if we set our sticky element to be, for example, you would need a long page. Let's see. Okay, let's set the green one again now to be the sticky. So it is this target. And then probably you need to do with the set the top position, let's say top 50px, for example. So now the green one is with the sticky, top 50. So now when we start to scroll down, yeah, now the green one comes with us. The 50 pixels is now on top of this this green one. So it is 50 pixels down from the browser viewport top edge. Now it's on normal positioning, and then when we scroll down, it's here. And here, when we what we see here in the inspect element tool, when we have this position sticky, when I scroll like this down, you can see that there is no flashing of here happening, and these values here in the inspect element panel, they are not changing at all. So that's also a clear clue that compared to this situation here with this W3 schools, when these flash and this position relative changes to fixed for this menu, that this is a clear indication that it is being modified with JavaScript. So they are in fact not using the sticky, but they are modifying the position of this top menu with JavaScript. So now it's relative, and now it's changed to be fixed. Whereas in our case, we have here this one. This one with the sticky. So if this green box would be our menu, for example, the width would be 100%, and we would have, okay, let's not do it like that. If the green box would have the width 100%, and then the height would be something smaller, like a menu bar, something like 30 pixels. So now it would come with us like so. And if we put the top one to 0, then it would be really on top of the page, like this. So if this green one would be our menu with position sticky and top 0, then it would come together. I don't know why this has not been implemented with the sticky. Possibly it is because the sticky might not have been supported by all the browsers some time ago. So for maximum compatibility, they might have gone with the JavaScript route because the position fixed and relative, they are widely supported. But these days, I don't think there are any browser out there which is not supporting the sticky anymore. Or if there is, they are in a significant minority, less than 1% of the user agents. Okay, so this is the position thing. So use cases, the sticky for menus, the fixed one for keeping the same position on the screen all the time. Typically used for all kinds of cookie warnings or subscription dialogues or these kind of things. Or in certain cases, some menus also. And then the relative and absolute positioning, that's typically used when you want to do some pixel perfect positioning of some elements, which might be tedious to do with some other layout techniques. Or alternatively, they are very commonly used, this position absolute and relative, also with animations. CSS supports animations, and this position relative or position absolute is quite good tool with the animations, because when you are positioning an element with relative or absolute thing, then you gain access to these top, left, right, bottom systems, which basically give you capability of moving an element within a coordinate system. So then it opens up possibilities to do interesting animation things. All right. Do you have any questions about this position thing?
For now, no.
Okay, let's have a break. Now we'll continue at about 9:20, and then we will move on to something known as flexbox. Here is an excellent article to flexbox, so you could open up this one already and have it ready for the time after the break. Okay, so we continue at 9:20. I'm gonna put the pause now. Okay, let's continue. Okay, there is some Isis Herrero is writing in the chat that Sticky is not compatible with Internet Explorer. Yeah, Internet Explorer is no longer a relevant browser. Its development has been stopped for some years already. So Microsoft is only maintaining Internet Explorer if some severe security vulnerabilities are found there, because all around the world there are many programs which have been written specifically for Internet Explorer, because it supported this kind of ActiveX extension, I believe. But the Microsoft guideline is that Internet Explorer should not be used for any other purposes than to access these so-called legacy programs, and not to surf online. So my opinion is that if you are developing a web application these days, you should not try to support Internet Explorer, because you will run into a lot of problems with it, not only with HTML and CSS, but also with JavaScript. And what I recommend is that you would have a browser detection on your application, that it detects an Internet Explorer and then displays a pop-up or some kind of message for the user that your browser is not supported, and please use some modern browser. And from Microsoft, there is this Edge browser, which they are actively developing further. And Microsoft is recommending that instead of Internet Explorer, people would use the Edge if they want to use Microsoft products. So yeah, there is lots of things which are not supported by Internet Explorer, and everything what will be added in the future to either HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, nothing of it will be supported by Internet Explorer, since it is not being developed anymore. So it is basically a dead browser these days. So that's good to know. But yeah, the Sticky, okay, so might be having some problems with some other browsers, but I don't know the details. I find it strange that Opera would have any problem with it these days. Okay, but then on to the next topic, which is the flexbox. The flexbox is basically, in my opinion, the best layout tool for CSS what you have, and almost all your layout situations can be solved with flexbox. Most of them can be solved by using the tables or by using the floats, but the end result will be more complex and time consuming to implement than what it would be with flexbox. So this is the latest, and in my opinion, the best tool for layouting. There is something known as CSS Grid, which is built upon this flexbox. But at least I find myself more using this flexbox more, but that might be a personal preference. So, okay, what is here? So this is quite a recent addition. So as you can see here in this documentation, that okay, it was a so-called candidate recommendation in this the standardization organization in October 2017. So it was only 3 years ago. But this is now very useful tool, which is supported by all the browsers. So the goal is to provide a more efficient way to lay out, align, and distribute space. And this is an important thing, even then when their size is unknown or dynamic. So there are many situations which are easy to deal when you have some known sizes for elements on the screen. then you can easily achieve the desired outlook. But then when you need to have dynamic sizing, meaning that the exact size of the element or the content is not known, and it's probably decided by the data, what the element will be shown. So then the flexbox can easily handle also those situations. And here we are talking about always element parents, so-called containers, and then we are talking about children or flex items. So this is the main logic here, that you have some container, and this is now the flexbox. And then inside that container, you have some children or items which the flexbox is controlling and laying out. And the container, what it does is that it can, if you want, it can also modify the width and height of the children, here the items. And then it can, if there is any remaining empty space, it can also distribute that empty space, this free space. And then important thing to realize is that that this flexbox is basically a one-dimensional layout solution. So you always choose that in which dimension you want to work on. So it can be either in horizontal direction, or it can be in the vertical direction. And whichever you choose for the flexbox, this container element, that will be then the so-called main axis. So this is an important term, main axis. So if you have chosen the flexbox to work in horizontal axis, then that horizontal axis will be called the main axis. And then there are some properties which work on the so-called main axis, and then some flexbox properties which work on the so-called cross axis. So the cross axis then refers to the vertical in this case. If the horizontal is the main axis, then the cross axis is the vertical axis. And what is now the direction of the main axis and direction of the cross axis depends on your container setting. So if the container is now on the horizontal, so-called row mode, then the main axis is horizontal and the cross axis is vertical. But if your flexbox container is in so-called column mode, then the main axis is vertical, and then the cross axis is horizontal. So this all depends that what is the direction of the main axis. The cross axis is always across the main axis. And this is an important concept to realize. Okay, in this page, this is the one what I typically use as a reference material. So unless you are working with the flexbox routinely, like on a daily basis, it's very easy to forget all the properties and how do they affect, because the flexbox concept, it has quite many CSS properties which you can use, and if you are like me, that you don't work on the flexbox on a daily basis, then you will need to have some reference material, and I find this article to be the best reference material. So how this has been organized is that here on this left side with this this violet color is containing the CSS properties which affect the parent element. the flexbox container. And then here on the right side are those properties which affect the child elements, meaning that you can give these properties to the child elements. And these properties have only meaning if those elements are inside a flexbox container. So let's start to play around. I'm going to create again a new HTML here. And I'm going to use this internal CSS style sheets again. Okay, so now let's start to have, let's make, for example, 3 divs with some with some content inside them. Let's put an image and some text inside each div. So this will be the basic structure of all these divs. So I will have there an image, and then we'll have some text here. So this will be the basic structure. And we'll make 3 of these. Now I'm gonna Google some let's say landscapes and take some images. So you can take whatever images you want. Okay, let's take, for example, here. I'm going to just copy the image address. These are just placeholder images. Canon Pro Ambassador. Okay. And I'm going to now copy so that I have now 3 of these images. Sorry, these elements. And then let's take 3 different. Do they have here some images? There was one. Okay, let's take this one, for example. Oops. And then, for example, this one. And remember that never ever on a real public website project should you take images like this from the web. You should always have the license to use the image. So here we are just using these as some placeholder images. Then I'm going to put some text. If I Google lorem ipsum, here we have lorem ipsum generator. So here is some description. This is a good placeholder text. Here you can choose how many paragraphs of text you want. So this is now the generated lorem ipsum. What text you have, it's not really meaningful. I'm just going to take some here. Instead of writing it manually, this serves as a good placeholder. So the idea is to have 3 divs here. with 3 images. And then some text below them. Let's see how it looks like. So they should be now on top of each other, those divs. So here they are. Next step, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to set the images to be of a certain width, so that they are, or actually no, they can remain. They can be scaled then. They can scale then depending on the container size. For these, now these 3 divs, I'm going to put an identical class for these. Let's name it, this will be an item. This will be an item, and this will be an item. And then the item, we'll define it here. Let's make it so that it has some padding. Let's see, 30 px, and then a gray solid border. So it has some borders. Okay, so now let's make these side by side. And we're going to use a flexbox to do it. Now, these 3 divs with the class item will be now the flexbox items, the children. So when we want to use a flexbox, we need to create one parent div inside which these children are. Let's put class flex. So all these 3 divs are now the children of this div with the class flex. Let's see, how do you activate the flexbox container? And you do it like this. For the parent, you set display property to be flex. So let's do that one. So for our parent, this is the flex. Here it is named container. Okay, let's rename it so that we follow the naming strategy here, so you don't get confused. So okay, so this will be now a container instead of flex, and the children are called items. Okay, so for the container, I'm going to put the display flex. And previously they were like this originally. Now when reload, they will be side by side like so. So immediately setting the flexbox will put them side by side. And then there is this property called flex direction. And this establishes now the main axis. So there is the main axis and then there's the cross axis. And with this flex direction, you can set the main axis. And there are 4 values: row, which is by the default. We start from the left and go to the right. So now these are laid with the row logic. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one here. Let's add here some identifiers. So add here an H1 level heading, saying the first, second, and then the third. So it's easier to keep track of these. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. And we are now using the default flex direction with value row. We have not set it anywhere, but it's the default value, so we go left to right in Alt-R when the font language system is from left to right. If you are using a language system which is going from right to left, then the row value will go right to left. So this changes. Okay. Let's see what this row reverse does. We can set this to the container because it's here on the left side. So flex direction, and then row reverse. With flex direction row reverse, it is the different order. Oops. Okay, this was an unexpected behavior. Why does it work like this? It should offer me the scroll bar, but for some reason it doesn't. Okay. Well, anyway, you can see that if I zoom in, you can see that the elements have been now laid out so that the third one is here on the left, second one is still in the middle, and the first one is here on the right. I was assuming that I would get a scroll bar here, but maybe no. So this is the flex direction row reverse. And then we can have it in the column. So now it will go from top to bottom. So this is the same basically as if we would not have had the flexbox at all. So the same now, before we have added any more CSS identifiers. CSS rules. Then we can have it also in the column reverse. So then it will be in a column, but in the reverse order. Now, the third one will be here on the top, on the top, and the second one in the middle, and the first one is here on the bottom, the last one. Okay, so this is what you can do with the flex direction. Now we want to have them in a side by side, so we don't need to have it at all set. So I'm going to delete this one. We are happy with the default row value. Then there is the possibility of setting flex wrap. And the default setting is that there should be no wrapping. But if you want it so that it wraps from one line to another, you can set this flex wrap to value wrap. So this is also possible. Here is some visual demo. Let's see what is this. Okay, so here is one demo. So there is red to set to no wrap, then the blue one set to wrap, and then here is wrap reverse. So if you have more items than what you can fit on the screen, and if you want them to wrap, then you can set the flex wrap to the value wrap. But by default, the flexbox will not be wrapping the items. Okay, then there is a shorthand property called flex flow. You can have the flex direction and flex wrap set with a single flex flow. So this is kind of like this border. This is now a shorthand method because I could have set the border width, border style, and border color. Now I have set the borders for those elements with a single property. So this is called shorthand. A shorthand property. But these three properties could just as well be set with their individual CSS properties. So this flex flow is like that. Okay, then there is something known as justify content. This does not give us much meaning before we have smaller items, because now our items are so big that they will wrap this. I mean, they will go to multiple rows, so there is no empty space available. Let's see what happens if we put some size for the container. I'm gonna try it out here first. If we set that the container width should be 100%, it doesn't do any change apparently yet. So it seems that we would need to set the item widths. Let's see what happens if we try to set the item width here to, let's say, 30%. Yeah, now the items get to 30% of the available width. But as you can see, the images, because they are so big, they are growing outside the elements. So we would need to do something for the images, for something for their styles. For an image, we could set the width that it can only use the 100% of the available width. By default, the image will be rendered on its normal size. But if we set that the width is 100%, it means that it should be 100% of the available space. And then the image will be resized. So let's do that one. I'm going to go here into my CSS, say that all images should be width 100%. Let's see how it behaves now. Okay. Suddenly, the elements are now fitting here to the screen, even if we did not set the width of the individual item at all. That was all experimented here in this debugger before the reload. But now when the image size has been controlled to some size, then they all now fit to the screen. But now you can see that the item sizes are a bit different. So this one is now 387 pixels. This one is now 575 pixels. And this one is now 275 pixels. And the size difference here is the reason because the original sizes of these images were different. So it tries to calculate them or fit them in some way to the screen at the same time. I don't know the exact calculation details, but this is the end result when we have not specifically sized any of these. So basically the flexbox rendering is sizing these based on some logic. Let's see, is the end result the same with Edge browser, for example? Are they using the same? Yes, it is the same. Okay, let's see what do we have here. Could we do something which modifies the size of the children? Here we have justify content for the parent. This defines how the elements are aligned, and it helps distribute extra free space. But we don't have any extra free space yet. but our items might be flexible. We could see what happens with those. Then there is an align items. This is how the items are laid out on the cross axis. So this doesn't have any effect on the item size. Then this is again on the cross axis, how in the same way as justify content is for the main axis, but that's not what we would like to do. But let's play around a little bit with the justify content. What is the result when we have not specified any sizes for these items? We can do it here quickly. I'm going to select the container element, and then I'm going to set here justify content. And with these, I can very conveniently see that what is the behavior. Is there any behavior? Oops. Or all the same results? Yeah, it seems that the result is all the same with all of these. So next step is to see what kind of properties for the children we have. Could we do something to set the size with this flexbox thing? Okay, there is one property which is not having anything to do with the sizing, but there is a property called order, which allows you to change the rendering order if you would like to do. So then the rendering order is different. We can check it out. For example, if we take this third one here, this third item, and if we set order to be, let's say, what is the value true, value 3, should change the order. Does it require that all the items are now? Let's see if this is order 1. Okay, I'm setting it for all the items. I need to set it maybe for this element exactly. If this is order 1, if this is order 2, okay, now it starts to have an effect. This one order 3, and this one order 2. No? Okay, order 1, the second one is here in the middle, order 2. What about this one? This order is something what I have never actually used for any purposes. Why is it the first one changing the order at all? I'm setting to the H1. This was for the incorrect. That's the reason. Okay, now it makes some sense. Yeah. So with this order, you can set the rendering order of the items into any order as what you want. I was confused when I was modifying the H1 order here, but it has to be this item. So now the first one is at order 3, so it's here at the last one. Second one is at the order 2 here in the middle, and third one at the order 1. We can modify this also in any way what we want. So third, first, second, however we want. So that is one possibility, but yeah, I have never had any use case for this modifying the order, but maybe there would be in some applications. Okay, flex grow. But it says that this defines the ability for a flex item to grow if necessary. It accepts a unitless value that serves as a proportion. And then that it dictates what amount of the available space inside the flex item the container should take up. And if all items have flex grow set to 1, the remaining space. Okay, again, there would be the remaining space. So now when we don't have any remaining space, let's see what happens if, does this property have any effect currently? I believe that it doesn't, because this flex spaces would be what we would need to set first, but let's see. Okay, so item, we have these 3 items. Let's set for this item 1, and it was the flex grow 2. And for this other, let's say flex grow 1. I think this doesn't have any effect now because there is no empty space. Yeah, it doesn't do anything yet. Let's see the situation one when if there is some empty space later on. And then for the shrink, okay, flex space is the default size of an element before the remaining space. And previously we have size an element with the width. So this is a property which can be at the conflict with the width. So by default, it is set to value auto. And this auto means that, okay, use the width or height property. So if you are using the width or height, then this flex spaces cannot be used. So the width and height and flex spaces are in conflict. Let's see if we put the flex spaces now to some values, and it can be a length size, so 20%, 5 REM. This REM is a size unit which we have not yet discussed at all. There are different size units in CSS beyond this percent or px. There are these EMs, REMs, and then something known as points. But let's see if we put now an item and we put then the flex basis for 1. Oops, why it doesn't work? Oh yeah, it should be a percentage value. So for 30%, for example. So now they are all at 30% sized. Let's see what we put if we put 10% or 20%. So now we have some remaining space, and now we can see, does the flex grow have any effect in this situation. But anyway, this flex spaces defines now the item size. So this is another alternative for the width setting. Now let's see what happens if we put, for example, for this last one, if we try to set the flex grow to allow it to grow. Yeah, so now it works. Now with this flex grow, we can set the proportions of that, what should be the sizes. So if we set the flex grow to be 3 for this one, 2 for the middle one, and then we set flex grow to be 1 for this one. Now you can see that the third one takes 3 times the amount of space compared to the first one. And it does it automatically. So you can give these proportions through this flex grow. And these only work now when we have not specifically set the sizes of these things. And if there is some empty space available. This flex shrink is something that if you want to have the capability of becoming a smaller item. By default, we don't have anything here, but let's set now flex basis to be, for example, let's say 25%. Now there is some empty space here. Now we can play around with the justify content, which was the parent setting. So it was here, this justify content. There are multiple values for it. And this is a very useful property. So let's see how it works. Oops. So we select the container element here, and then we set justify content. We can have these three centered at the end, flex end or flex start, so aligned. Then they can be, okay, this left is the same thing, normal, revert, right. Okay, this space around, center, space evenly, space between, they are the most commonly used. So as you can see, all these settings define that how the empty space is spread. So with space around, there is equal amount of empty space around these elements. So, oops. Does it show it here? No. So the space around is seen here. So it works like this. So it takes the available empty space in the container, and then the empty space is split around the elements. So there is here, 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 and here the same amount of empty space. So that's the reason why the empty space between these two is bigger than what is the area in here. So here we have the default margin 8 for the body, or padding 8, which is visible. Here. So this orange area is the default margin. So let's modify so that it doesn't confuse us. Body margin 0. And the container has justify content space around. Now it's clearer without the margins in the body, that all of these have now the same amount of space around them. Then what else? You have another values also available. You have a space between. Now you can see that at the left side of the first one and the right side of the on the last one. So here on the left side of the first one, and then on the right side of the last one, there is no empty space. So all empty space are distributed in between these elements. So here and here. Then there is space evenly. So now there is even space. So you can see the amount of white space is the same here on the left side, here in between these elements, and here on the right side. And this is a very useful property when you want to have indeed even space. So otherwise you would need to do with CSS some kind of selectors with, okay, first child, last child, and then set the margins somehow, or paddings, whatever you are using for the white space, so that you have the exact same amount here on the left, in between, and the right. So this space evenly is a little bit tricky to achieve without this flexbox. This is very useful tool. And then there is, of course, the center as well. So justify content, and then all the white spaces here at the left and right side of the items. So this is the justify content, and this works, as you can see, it works on the main axis. And here immediately you can see one of the features what comes by default with this flexbox. We have 3 elements side by side. Here, here, here. We have set the borders for all these divs. And what you can see is that they have equal height. So 3 equal height divs side by side. And it works with dynamic content. So if we change the content inside these divs, for example, if this would be coming from some data source, either via JavaScript or server-side rendering, the flexbox could handle it, so the layout would not break. If you would try to do this with traditional CSS, it is extremely tricky thing to do to achieve this equal sized, equal height boxes side by side. It sounds very simple thing to do, but with traditional CSS, it's very tricky to do. You can do it by easily if you set fixed height, but then if you have dynamic content, which can be long or short or whatever, then it becomes very tricky thing to do with traditional CSS. So this is something what you get out of the box with Flexbox immediately. Okay, and then the align items. This is also a very useful thing to have. So this defines that how these items are laid out. So now this, what I was telling you about this equal height thing, it works because the default setting is this stretch, as it's seen here. We can see how this works if we change the setting. So I go to the container, and then I use the align items. The default value is this stretch. We could have it here at the flex start. So now you can see they are now in the beginning on top. There are other options as well. The stretch is the default one. Start, I think it's the same as flex begin. What are these? Okay, then we have the end, flex end. You can have it at the bottom of this cross axis, and then you can have it at the center. This is also very useful. So many times there are situations when you want to have content at the center aligned, and this flexbox gives you this capability. In this example, it's not necessarily so useful, but it's also quite commonly used property, but not in this kind of situation. But the default value is the stretch. So this align items decides that how they are aligned on the cross axis. So they can be either stretched or they can be in the beginning, in the end, or in the center. That's basically the three or I mean four different values for this align items. And then what are the other ones here? And then for this child items, we have had this flex basis and then the flex grow, which defines how much it can grow if there is some empty space. Flex shrink, that the opposite of the grow. And then there is this shorthand property called flex. So it combines the flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis together. And the default value is 0, 1, and auto. So auto for the flex basis, meaning that look at my width or height, and then yes, I can shrink, and no, I cannot grow. And here they recommend that you use the shorthand property rather than setting the individual properties. So it sets the other values intelligently. What this means is that if you leave some of these out, so if you set, for example, flex to something only to single value, then apparently there is some intelligence here, but yeah, I don't know exactly how that intelligence part or intelligent part works. But yeah, but this is the main point of the flexbox. It gives you the capability of doing layout in a single axis. So in this case, we were working on this horizontal axis, and it gives you the capability of aligning items in the cross axis, and then dividing the empty space inside a container quite nicely. So that is the main purpose of the flexbox. Okay, I think we're going to have a break now of some 15 minutes and continue at 11:30. So break, continue at 10:30. Then about the media queries in CSS. So let's see, I'm going to open again the CNN website. Let's see, does this have these media queries? So the media query is used typically to deal with different browser window sizes. And it is evident when you are looking at a website like this in a big screen browser. And then when you start making the window size smaller, you typically see these changes happening on the layout. Okay, there it was. You see here on the bottom we had these visible, and then they become somehow different. And now here is a clear trigger point, as you can see here. So this effect is being done with the media queries. So media query gives you the capability of monitoring the browser size and then setting the CSS rules based on that size. And this is called a responsive website. And this is quite common in any of these modern websites. So here, for example, is the Finnish Helsingin Sanomat. They have quite narrow layout to begin with, but then when we go into smaller size, like so, you can see that this right sidebar vanishes, and then we are left with this very narrow layout, which is basically suitable for mobile devices. I think there is not that many use cases where people would be having this narrow browser with a desktop browser, but this is more for mobile devices. And this inspect element tool, at least in the Chrome, it has a tool to show this mobile view, to show the page in a mobile device-sized viewport. So if you think about it, that okay, if you would have to make the screen size this small, then having this inspect element, at least here on the bottom, would not make the experience very nice. Of course, you can use this dock button to make it into a separate window like this. This would, of course, be good. But okay, now it's permanent there. But typically what you use for developing these responsive sites for mobile devices is that here this this button, toggle device toolbar. When you click here, you will get there on top, you will get this kind of toolbar, and then you have these devices. So basically what happens is that the browser will indicate to the web server that now here is an iPhone 6, 7, or 8. Please give me a mobile site. So this works even if the server is doing some kind of user agent, meaning browser detection. But this gives you nice smaller viewport. And here is the size. Here is in the percentage. You can also see it from there. Then you can see what happens if you have this kind of mid-tier or low-end mobile. So this basically limits the processing capability. So it shows that how will the website behave if you have a low-end mobile device. Now I clicked on the link, and it slows like super slow. So with this, you can test out your web application that, okay, how heavy it is on the processing side. And then you can test that, okay, how does the application behave if you are offline? There are these certain techniques what you can do to allow even offline browsing. So here, that technique is not being used in this Helsingin Sanomat website. It just says no internet when I have this offline. But there are these techniques where you can cache some resources, for example, with something known as progressive web application, which you will learn in your later year of studies. But in any case, this toolbar is very useful for these responsive sites. Then this option here, this top one, this responsive, this is something that I have not seen. Okay, it allows me to resize this very, very nicely. Yeah, this is also very good. They have added it in some recent time, this kind of view. Yeah, so but anyway, this is your developer tool for these responsive sites. Okay, let's see how the media queries work. So they work like this, that, okay, you write something like this to the CSS rules. And as you can see here, we have this media query rule, which says that, okay, when our screen is at maximum of 600 pixels wide, and we have this kind of only screen device, there are these keywords which can deal with different presentation techniques, so to speak. So this could be, for example, print or something like this as well. But this is the most important part here, that you define these so-called breakpoints with these sizes, maximum width, minimum width, or so on. And then you have these curly brackets starting here and here. So everything inside that, inside those curly brackets, you can write normal CSS rules, and these rules are only applied when this condition matches. That is the core thing in this media query. So you can define a situation and then have CSS rules applied only in that situation. Now, if you think about, for example, this kind of change, what you see here, when we are at this width, when we go to smaller, it goes like this. These subscription options they are not anymore side by side, but they are on top of each other. What do you think? How could you achieve this kind of effect? First of all, if you think about how would you lay out these items side by side, what could you do?
Use flex, just like what we have been checking now.
Yeah, okay, yes, you could use a flexbox just like we did with the before the break. Okay, so then what do you think what needs to change when we go from here to here so that they are now from side by side, they are stacked on top of each other? What do you think what needs to be changed?
The main direction of the flex.
Yes, so that is exactly what needs to be changed. And then if you see more details here when we are side by side, these there is quite a lot of information presented here below this this pricing information. And then when we go like this, that is not anymore here. Instead, it is toggled like this, that you need to click here, see what is included in the subscription. When you click, then you see all the features here. So this is also something what changes. So first of all, here is this button. This clickable button is visible. So what happens is that in this situation, that button has been hidden, so it is not displayed at all. Then with the media query statement, it is suddenly visible. We can probably see it if we select this element here. Okay, here it is feature list opener. And you can see here that here is the media query rule visible. So when we are dealing with the screen and a maximum 767 pixels, then this display has value initial. By default, it has display none. But now, because we are in such a small window size, this is active and the display is at initial value. When I make the viewport bigger, you can see that this rule now vanishes and this display none becomes active. Why didn't it show? Okay, it didn't update automatically. I need to click here. Okay. Okay, now it's updating. So now when it's in the smaller, this media query rule is in effect. Display value has been set to initial. When I make it bigger, the CSS media query is no longer active, and therefore the list opener is with display none. So this display property can be controlled, that is the element displayed at all or not. So with display none, the element is there in the HTML, but the browser is not showing it at all. And then when we go to smaller, then the display none is overridden by value display initial, and then this element is displayed. And it's the same thing with this when we click here. If we see what are these elements, these, for example, here, this feature list wrapper. That's the feature list open. Here we have this feature list wrapper. So now, let's see how this behaves when we are here. It has this display block property. Then when we go to smaller size, the wrapper is still visible, but then why is it not visible? Let's see. What part are they? Which part they are hiding and showing? Maybe this was not so good example after all. Okay, I can't locate now that where are they actually modifying the display. Some of these items here somewhere. But yeah, the main logic in any case is this is visible here with this one here. did I have the incorrect? Okay, I had the incorrect element actually visible. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was showing the incorrect element by mistake. Okay, so now when we click here, you can see that this feature list wrapper, by default, it is with display none, and that has been activated with this media query. And when I click on this button, a display block is being added. This is no longer done with media queries, but with JavaScript. That they are adding this display block here with JavaScript when we click. But by default, this happens. It seems that with this media query, and then when we go in the larger, that media query vanishes, so display none. So this is the way how you implement this kind of responsive website. You decide that what is your breakpoint size. Very common size is, for example, 767, but you can decide whatever you want. And then you have the CSS, which CSS rules which become active at that moment. Okay, let's see, for example, here in this work of ours, if we would like to add a media query. So let's say that we would like to be so that when we are, for example, you see here the size, maybe 1000 pixels in width would be so that this would be our breakpoint, that when we get into smaller than 1000 pixels, then we would like to have these items stacked on top of each other. So to do that, we need to know how to write media queries, and then we will need to know that which CSS property we need to modify. And we can already play it around with here. So here was this flex direction. By default, it is a row, but we can also modify it to column. So what we would like to do is that when we are in the smaller than 1000 pixels, we set flex direction to be column. So then they would be on top of each other. And this is now something what we will do with the media query. Okay. You can, for example, copy here this or look the syntax. So I will go here. So I'll write at media. Then this offers these possibilities. Okay. Media screen and let's say max width now 1000 pixels, or at least let's say 999 if you want. So that when the width is 1000, then they would be side by side. So at 999, they should be on top of each other. All right. So now between these curly brackets, we can now define CSS rules which are in effect when these rules are true. Okay, so now what is it that we must modify? We must modify the container and make it so that it has flex direction column. So we will do here dot container and then flex direction column. Okay. So now this rule will be in effect only when this condition is true. All of these will always be in effect. Let's see how this works. When we are here, we don't have any change. When we go to smaller, and now they are on top of each other. Now we see that, okay, we had these borders. It doesn't look very nice. They are so closely together. And actually what we would like to have is that maybe some margins here are around us, so we can improve that. So for example, previously we had set body to margin 0, so we could now override that one. Okay, when we have a small display, maybe set the margin 5 px to the body, and then maybe each item, maybe we do it like this, that each item should have then margin bottom, let's say 20 px. So now we should have some margin on the sides and then some margins on the bottoms of the items. Let's see. Okay, we don't see any change here because this rule is not yet in effect. We make this smaller, and now we see that now the borders are more visible here. So it looks kind of nice. Not so cramped. But then we maybe notice that, okay, we have quite a lot of spacing here on top. Here is the padding for this box, and then we have the H1. It has some built-in padding. You can see it here, this orange part here on the top. So maybe we can take that padding on top. Okay, it's margin on top away. So maybe we will do so that, okay, with H1, we set the margin top to be 0. So then it will look more nice in this smaller display. That doesn't have any effect here, but then when we go here, okay, now it looks maybe better. There is no longer the built-in margin with the H1, and the layout looks a little bit nicer. Yeah, and then you can have multiple these rules as well. So you could have, for example, that, okay, when we go into very small display at maximum, for example, 999, maybe when we go, what would be a suitable size, very small display, for example, to smaller than 550. So maybe we put here, and we can have, okay, maybe 550. We could put here that let's take this star. If I recall correctly, that applies to everything. We could make the font size. Let's see, can we put 120%? Would this work? Did it target? Activate the responsive mode here. No, I forgot what is the selector. Was it the star? Yeah, it should select all the stars. Why doesn't it now modify the font size? Oh, well, maybe the percentage thing is not what it's working.
Did you refresh the page? Because on my page it's working.
Yeah, I think I refreshed, but for some reason it's not working, the font size with the percentage. Well, we can try something like XXX large. No, it's still not working. Why is this? Okay, maybe this was a bad thing to try. Maybe I will try it with the div selector. Does it have any change? No. Let's put then some explicit font size. Yeah, I don't understand why it doesn't now affect. What is there wrong? Yeah, for some reason it's not working. I don't quite understand why. Let's see with the Edge browser. Yeah, there the font is changing to smaller one. If I put it to bigger one. Yeah, here it is working. I don't know why it doesn't work with my Chrome browser. Yeah, this is the thing what I was going after. So we could put the font size bigger. Let's see, does it work with the percentage? Yeah, seems to be working. I don't know why the Chrome is now throwing some problems here. Okay, now it's working in Chrome as well. All right. Yeah, but that's the idea of this media query. So you can have multiple of these, and the possible values what you can use there is the max width, and then let's see, we have a rule here. Then you can have the min width as well, minimum width, and were there any other keywords? Yeah, okay, this is also possible. This is something that I have never used. So this orientation, landscape, or portrait. So this is something what would probably work by default with in a mobile browser quite nicely when you change the device orientation in your hand. But the idea here is that when the browser window is wider than its height, then it's in the landscape. Or when it's the otherwise, then it's in the portrait. And here are some of the quite common these sizes listed. So you can follow these, or you can go with your own depending on your needs. Sometime your layout might be so that at certain points the elements just become too packed, and then you will need to modify, let's say, the font size or some other size setting, or maybe some margin settings to get the layout to look as like what you want. Okay, so that's for the media queries. What we will now do is that I will give you your homework, and you can start working on it now. I can help you a little bit if you want, if you have some problems. And then additionally, what you should do, tomorrow we will talk about user interface design. And for that, you should download this tool called Axure. This is a user interface design and prototyping application.
Sorry, but tomorrow there's no class.
Okay, yeah, it has been removed. Yeah, so tomorrow there is this maalisuora. Okay, but for next week then next week, typically we have on Thursday. Yeah, so for next week you should download this Axure, and they have this free trial which is for 30 days. So it will take you until mid of December, but you can also get the full license for this as a student when you go here to the buy. And then here, request a free education license. If you go here and then click here, there is a request form for students. So now what you need to do is to fill your information here. This must be your school email address. This must be your school name. And then you must put here an image with the proof of your registration with your name showing. And what are these valid? Proof of registration, a transcript, current class schedule, letter from school administration stating that you are enrolled, your student ID card with current validity, or so on. So I believe you can get the student study this some kind of letter or document from Peppi that you are studying here in our school, or if you have a student card, you can take a photo of that and put it here. But you will need to put something there. And then submit this, and then it will take some time, maybe some days or even a week, because they are validating this in a manual way. So during once your application has been processed, then you will get an email with a license key for this action, and then you can use it for a longer time than just the 30 days free trial. So this is something what you should download and install for the next time. Okay, so homework for next week then. Here in the Moodle you can find under the homework and this date, there is again a 2-point exercise, similar HTML and CSS thing. So you should complete that one. And then you should additionally play through a game called Flexbox Froggy, which looks like this. So here the idea is that, let's see, can I get this reset? Okay, so here the idea is that you practice using Flexbox by playing this Froggy game. There are multiple levels. So in this level you must get this green frog to this green, in Finnish it's lumpenlehti, this kind of floating leaf. And you must write here that, okay, what is the Flexbox rule to get it here? So here is an example, since this is level 1, okay. You must write here, justify content flex end. And now the frog is on top of the leaf, and you can go to the next level. Yay. Now you have 2 frogs. Now you must think, okay, what can you do? Here are again some tips. Use justify content again. Okay, it's a lily pad. Yeah, is this floating leaf. Okay, what does this justify content do? And these are the possible values. So now you have to write here, justify content, and then a suitable value, maybe center. Yes, that was the correct one. Next level. And again, now you have 3 frogs. You must get them to these lily pads. This is still with justify content. If you try the center here, no, that's not the correct one. What are the possible values? Maybe it should be space around. Yes, that was the correct one. And next. So you should play through this game. There are 24 levels. And then it gets increasingly difficult. But I think this is a quite good way to learn lots and lots of these Flexbox rules. Then about the 2-point exercise again. So here, this is something what you can start now immediately. So here the task is to implement this design with HTML and CSS. So here are now 3 views of the same design. So here it's in a very small browser window. So you would have this kind of design that you have this username and then some image. So this is like an Instagram post design. And then you have some icons here and then likes and then these comments go here. And then you have a more button, which you could click to open. That functionality you don't have to do. Then when you have a bigger screen, then instead of having this on top of each other, they should be side by side and all the comments should be visible. And add comment feature here. And then when you have an even bigger screen, you see that now this image is the one which gets most of the space. This comment area is sized a little bit more, but the image is having the biggest amount of new space. So you should create this this UI design with HTML and CSS and practice the media queries so that the layout works properly. And I also recommend that you would practice the flexbox for creating this layout. So you can have multiple flexboxes inside to achieve these results. And use the browser developer tool. Where did it go now? Here. The browser developer tool to make the resizes, so that can help you. All right. What do you think? Do you have any questions about this exercise? So the deadline is November 18th, so next week, Wednesday. And again, you should be prepared to demonstrate your work.
I have a question about the program. On the name of the school, should we put OAMK or the full name of the university?
You should put the full name, Oulu University of Applied Sciences.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so tomorrow you have the Maalisuora event. I'm sure you have been instructed about it. I really recommend you to visit all the companies and discuss with the representatives. Especially, you should talk about that what kind of technologies they are working and what do they expect from when they are hiring students for summer jobs, for example, or for projects and so on. That way you can get some direct information that what kind of attitude you should have and what is the meaning of or what kind of skills you should have for different companies and so on. So it's a really good event to discuss with the company representatives, and also it's a good idea to take their contact information so that in the spring you can use those contacts then to apply for summer jobs, for example. All right, let's have now a 15-minute break, and then we'll still have some about 40 minutes or so during which you can work on this exercise, and then I can help you to get started if you have some problem. So I will now close the recording since there is no new content today.